Hey there, Rednecks, Preppies, Redneck Preppies. It's me, the Redneck Preppy. How you doing today? Great? Good. So I've done a few videos over the years that have either directly addressed or touched upon the topic of reloading and whether you can save money. In the last video I did back in, I think it was November 2020, I concluded that it was a good way, with some provisos, to save money per round over factory ammunition. Lately, though, I've been wondering if that's still true. Up here in Canada, we're still experiencing the spillover effects of the shortages in the United States. As I'm recording this, I can't find large rifle primers in stores anywhere near me. Along with shortages, prices have shot up considerably over the past year for every kind of reloading component, be it primers, brass, bullets, or powder. At any rate, a few days ago, I was updating a spreadsheet that I keep reloading and cost data on for each caliber I reload. And I got to comparing what it cost me to reload some rounds just last summer, what it costs me today, and how that compares to the price of similar factory ammunition. The results, at least for me, were pretty interesting. Now, before we do the exciting work at looking at numbers, let me set out the rules. When it comes to reloading, I tend to use components of average quality. There is no Lapua brass or Mauser bullets in my world. For factory ammunition, again, I didn't pluck match grade stuff to compare against. It's mostly average quality stuff from companies like PPU or Barnewall, Federal, whatever it may be. Because I almost always never buy that match grade caliber of ammunition. Finally, in all cases, the prices are in Canadian dollars because, well, I'm Canadian. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Now, the first caliber we'll look at is .303 British. As you can see, my reloading costs increased by about 7 cents per round if you don't include new brass, and about 35 cents per round if you do. In both cases, including brass made it more expensive than PPU brass-cased ammunition, which at the moment comes in at about $1.69 a round, assuming that you can even find any on a store shelf or online retailer in Canada. Short version, if you already have brass, it's still cheaper than factory. Now, next up is the real man caliber, 30-06. Now with this, I have to specify that I was looking at this caliber with a 180 grain bullet. That's what I shoot out of my M1903 Springfield. Pretty much the same story as .303 British in terms of a rise in price when you look at the cost without brass, and just under 13 cents increase over the past 8 months if you look at including the price of new brass. Again, both costs with brass are a bit higher than the price per factory round, while reloads without new brass are still cheaper. I mean, none of that should be a surprise to you, right? Because you typically amortize the cost of brass over how many reloads you get out of it. Next up, everyone's favorite intermediate round, .223 Remington, has also, not surprisingly, seen price increases for both reloaded and factory ammunition. Again, when you include the cost of new brass, the price is more expensive than that of factory. In that case, it's steel-cased Barnewall that can be purchased in bulk. Now, for both reloaded round costs, not including brass, the price has risen about 11 cents in 8 months, but still comes cheaper than factory. Lather, rinse, repeat with 8mm Mauser, again including brass, in the price makes today's reloading cost more expensive than factory, though interestingly last summer it wasn't. While not including brass, still cheaper than factory. Now, just to explain why my reloading cost for this full power round is so high compared to others, I do tend to go all fancy-pantsy and use Varget in this caliber, so it is more expensive than calibers like .303 British, 30-06, and 7.62x54, where I use less expensive BLC2, the working man's powder. Also, factory 8mm is, in Canada, fairly expensive for whatever reason. Finally, we get to 7.62x54R, and here the numbers are pretty interesting. A substantial increase in the cost of reloading when brass is included, and I don't have an explanation for that. It could be that my old price was inaccurate. when comparing last summer to today, but a more modest rise when not including brass. Now, what's more interesting to me, though, is that the cost of reloading now isn't that far off from factory steel-cased Barnewell ammunition I can buy for about $1 a round. Okay, so what does this all tell us? Well, some things are pretty obvious. If you can range pick up brass in the calibers you reload, you can cut a significant portion of your cost, sometimes more than half the total cost of reloaded round. If you buy a bag of brass to reload a caliber, regardless of what it is, that initial hand load is going to cost you more than factory ammunition. But like I said, you're kind of hoping to amortize that cost, right? So take care of that brass, friends. The longer you can shoot it, the more you can keep those costs down. For me personally, however, it's led me to a place for a few calibers I didn't think I was ever going to go back to. Buying factory ammunition again. Take 7.62x54R. Yes, I can still save just under 9 cents per round over the Barnewell if I reload, but how much is my time worth? I can drive to a gun store in 10 or 15 minutes and buy as much of the caliber in steel-cased, non-corrosive, or corrosive if I choose, and the latter would be cheaper than those reloads, as the store has. It takes me a long time to reload an equivalent amount of that ammunition, and my time is certainly worth more than the 8.54 cents a round I'm saving. I may still reload that caliber for my Mauser Nagant M9130 PU sniper rifle, where, at least in theory, I want the best performing ammunition I can get. But does it really make sense to reload a, precision round for something like my SVT-40? And although the case isn't as clear-cut for 223 Remington, I'm seriously reconsidering whether I want to continue to reload that round as well. Buying brass for that caliber is never going to happen because I can just pick up a ton of it every time I go to the range. That said, the cost savings not including brass, which is just under 20 cents a round, still has to factor in the amount of time I need to, case prep that range brass. I save, I think, $19.45 per 100 rounds, compared to compared to Barnewell steel case ammunition. Is that adequate compensation for the amount of time that I spend case prepping and reloading it? For some other calibers, I can still make the case that it's worth it. I can't buy factory 303 British at the moment, so I may as well continue to reload since I have the components. I can still save about 80 cents per round reloading a 30-06, and finding range pickup brass isn't that hard. Assuming I have a good supply of brass, I can also save a good chunk of money reloading 8mm Mauser. I'll say right now that the situation here in Canada isn't a smaller mirror of that in the US, so the results for my American friends may be different from my exercise. Our supply of ammunition components has been severely affected in part by the retirement and closure of some importers of components and ammunition, primarily from European countries like PPU. And the size of our market is also obviously far smaller than that of the US. That said, I think if you run this exercise on your own, you might be surprised at the results. Of course, that also depends on your motivation for reloading in the first place. People who get into it are often lured by the promise that they can save money shooting by reloading. They then learn that they tend to spend at least the same amount of money, but shoot more. If they spend even more money than they did before, they justify it by telling people that they just produce better than factory ammunition for a cheaper price. Or as someone on AR15.com recently wrote, "I reload to get good ammo cheap. I don't reload to get ammo cheap." That said, you might find in some cases that factory ammunition, while it may be slightly more expensive, will save that most precious commodity you have, time. I don't see, for example, a point to reloading a plinking round like 223 Remington or 7.62x39 if you're only going to be saving a few cents per round to shoot steel plates. Cheap corrosive ammunition can ruin plates at distance all day, and you won't have to spend hours loading it for the range. So yeah, I think I've come to the end of reloading 7.62x54 for at least my SVT-40, and once I work through the brass I have, I'm probably going to be buying bulk 223 going forward. I may occasionally reload that round for some precision shooting, such as it is with an AR-180B platform rifle, but most of the time I'm going to be shooting steel at 200 yards. I honestly don't see any real reason to spend hours on case prep and reloading to save $20 per 100 rounds doing that. So who would have thought it, that prices have risen so much that at least for some calibers, in some use cases, it would no longer make sense for me to reload. I'll be honest with you, after I started to reload, I only ever bought factory ammunition if I couldn't find reloading components for a caliber, something like brass for 7.5 Swiss. And that might have happened maybe 2 or 3 times over the years. Or if, the factory ammunition was just so cheap, I just could not pass it up. At any rate, I hope you found this video to be at least vaguely entertaining and somewhat informative. As always, I hope you have yourself a great day, and may you always shoot tight groups, regardless of whether you reload or buy factory ammunition. Take care, and bye-bye.